Thank you for joining us for the Future of Home Builder Regulation and Statutory Warranty in Ontario here at the Buildings Show Expo. My name is Saloni Warich, and I'm the Vice President of Stakeholder Relations at Tarion. I'm joined by Bob Thoburn, Director of Stakeholder Relations, and Nicole Kennedy, Manager of Warranty Services. And of course, we have a full agenda. I hope that you do enjoy it. The first thing we're going to talk about when we go through our agenda is really what's happening at Tarion in terms of transformation as a result of the government announcement earlier this year. Hopefully you have heard about that. And we're going to talk about some of the other things that are happening at Tarion around improved policies and resources that will help you or your clients. And then we'll go into a round of warranted or not. And it gives you some insight into what we deal with when we go into someone's home and how we would look at an item that's on a claims form and assess it. We'll also give you a preview in terms of what we're reviewing right now in our construction performance guidelines. Hopefully, some of you have heard of our CPG, the Construction Performance Guidelines, and it's a document or a tool that we use to hopefully provide clarity to the industry, builders, and homeowners in terms of how we would determine warrantability on an issue. And we'll end with another round of warranted or not. So I mentioned the recent announcement this year around transformation of Tarion. You may be aware that in March of this year, the Minister of Government and Consumer Services announced that she intended to move forward with plans to strengthen consumer protection for Ontario's new home buyers by making changes to our program. The announcement followed an extensive review, and there were written submissions and roundtable discussions that the province conducted with a variety of stakeholders. And basically, the Ontario New Home Warranty Plan Act hadn't been revised for 41 years, so it was time to take a look at how are things being delivered, are the right services being delivered, is it the right mandate? So at a high level, the legislation, which will be passed likely in the next week or so, calls for the separation of the warranty provider from the new home builder and vendor regulator. So the regulator will be separate from the warranty side. It does introduce modern oversight measures, which is code for government will have certain protocols in place to keep an eye on making sure that we are, as the two entities, following certain transparency and accountability measures. And making the dispute resolution process easier for homeowners, which is ultimately why the warranty program exists. And they also announced that they'll be working with us to strengthen deposit protection measures. We know that the marketplace has changed significantly over the last few years, not just in GTA, but around the province. So we wanted to make sure that our deposit protection levels would better reflect today's home prices and the deposit requirements. Right. So what are the timelines around transformation? I've already mentioned the legislation has already been introduced. It's been through most of the process, and it will likely go to third reading at Queen's Park next week and be passed. Now that is just the enabling legislation to talk about carving out the two organizations. The devil is in the details, as we know, and what that means is there will be a lot of regulatory work, really exciting stuff, but it is the background policy work that happens at the government level around what will the board composition look like, what kinds of policies and procedures will be enshrined in a legislative way to make sure that we're making it better for stakeholders. And I do understand the government will be consulting on that once they start drafting those regulations, which we expect to be sometime in 2018. We also know there will be a provincial election somewhere in that timeline, and the government has publicly announced that the carving out of those two new organizations and the implementation of it will be in 2020. And of course, with other, and that's today that they're announcing that. We know that sometimes there are delays, but it is a long-term process. Why are we talking about it? Because we're still here. We're the partners with the government making sure that this implementation happens to the best of our ability. We're working very closely with the government to make sure that we're talking about how the business currently runs, what our stakeholder needs are, and of course we want to make sure that we're implementing their vision. But we'll continue working the way we do today with all of you. So we're still registering builders, we're still providing continuing education, we'll still work out there in the industry to talk about emerging trends, and of course we are still providing and backstopping the warranty process for new homeowners and buyers. What you will see is, and I've mentioned it several times, we're still working on continuous improvement initiatives like deposit protection, and I'm going to get right into deposit protection. We've already talked about the changing marketplace. We did put out a discussion paper. I know policy is really interesting stuff, but some of us like it, and we know that there's always a need to make sure that it is current. But we did get lots of stakeholder feedback around the marketplace, both from homeowners as well as builders. And based on that, we actually have something posted currently on our website that if the legislation passes next week, will become effective on January 1st. Historically, our deposit protection levels have been up to $40,000. Once again, we know that is not reflective of the current marketplace. So we've changed it where it is a range. The minimum threshold being $60,000 and the ceiling being $100,000. For those of you that are in the front line of selling new homes and involved with agreements of purchase and sale, as well as builders in general, should know that this will now include upgrades and extras. So up to $100,000 essentially, including upgrades and extras that were never included before in our deposit coverage. Condo conversions. Is anyone here involved in condo conversion projects or have been thinking about it? No? Oh. Sorry to single you out. And you probably already know this, through the province's revision of their Condominium Act a couple of years ago, they did come to Tarion to say there is a gap in consumer protection. Condominium conversions are projects that have never had to be enrolled with Tarion. Those builders and sellers or vendors have never had to be licensed through Tarion, and there was never warranty protection to those homeowners unless the individual builder had their own level that they were providing. So now the government has mandated that there will be warranty protection, a basic level of that. And the reason why I'm singling someone out, or in general that this is good for you to know, and it's really good for realtors to know as well, is if you never had to be involved with Tarion because of a conversion project before, surprise, surprise, now you do. There will be new requirements around audits and paperwork, lovely stuff like that, and you will have to be licensed through Tarion. So take a look at our website. That also is coming into effect on January 1st, so not that much time left. As a point of clarification, because we have been out there across the province talking to some of your colleagues, if you already have a project in the works, the January 1st date is applicable for the very first agreement of purchase of sale that you sign up for that particular project. So if you already have a project underway, you don't have to worry about it or worry about us. So, Tarion Start Right program. So this is something we're really excited about, and we do a lot of continuing education across the province, not just for builders, new builders, but also realtors, home inspectors, and we're always looking for ways to raise the bar. A couple of years ago, we introduced new requirements for builder education for new builders coming into the system, where they have to achieve 7 core competencies. And through that process, we also started phasing out basically our old school way of orienting new builders to Tarion's policies and processes, which some of you may have been through, the new builder orientation. But then we thought, how do we make sure that new builders are getting the right resources and tools and the proper education in the front end of their exciting time of being a new builder and licensed with Tarion. So we have a program we formally launched. We piloted certain aspects of it over the last year and a half. But in July, we made sure that anyone this year that is considered to be in the Start Right program, so a brand new builder, never been licensed before, would receive a welcome letter from us, customized from whoever their designated stakeholder representative is. And for those of you, I don't know if you've ever met Bob, but he is on that team. And if you would like to, he's definitely someone you should get to know, because if you ever have a question about what are your obligations from a consumer perspective to explain our policy and process, what are the timelines, he's our resident expert. And we wanted to make sure the new builders knew that they had someone to just be able to pick up the phone and call and say, so what am I supposed to do now? And we've made sure that when they receive, if they ever receive their first ever statutory warranty form from a customer, that they're going to get a call from us now, from whoever their designated rep is, to say, so now you've received a form. Do you know what you need to do? Do you know what your timelines are? Do you need any presentations for you and your staff around the customer service guidelines or standards? And we also do that when you put in your first enrollment now. And members of the Start Right program will also get periodic communications around new continuing education modules. Do you need any customized presentations for you and your team? So we're quite excited about that. So for those of you that aren't registered builders but happen to be our other industry partners, we're also really excited about something that we formally announced about a month and a half ago, and that's the Ontario Building Partnership. The partnership is a formal commitment between Tarion, the Ontario Building Officials Association, and OHBA, the Ontario Home Builders Association, to ensure that we're working together for consistency across the industry, increase professionalism. We go out there and talk to the media about the importance of public education before embarking upon signing a contract with a builder, what they need to do in terms of the home buyers and homeowners. And it's been a great positive relationship so far. And the reason why we're excited about it is because we have other partners. We have realtors that we also work with. We have home inspectors that we work with. And we want to make sure that we're all out there increasing confidence in the new home buying experience. That's really why we're all here, whether it's from a business perspective or from a public interest perspective. BuilderLink. Are any of you on BuilderLink? Great. If there are any other registered builders in the room, I hope you get on BuilderLink if you aren't. Unless you tell me otherwise, we think it's a fantastic tool since it was launched. We keep trying to tweak it and making it more user-friendly for you. We want to make sure that your business process around your builder repair periods and your timelines and getting the forms, that we're making it as easy as possible for you as well to service your customers. So in July, we did launch a more modernized version of it. Hopefully there's easier navigation. That was based on your feedback. If it isn't, we want further feedback. And of course, there's also an e-signature feature that was added. Why is that interesting or a positive move, because historically we've been asking you to print out your forms, sign your forms, scan them back, and we think the e-signature feature hopefully makes it much easier on your end to do business with us, frankly. My Home Planner app. This is a more customer-facing app that we have launched, and it really is, but it's good for you to know what new home buyers and owners have at their fingertips. And really, this was targeted to homeowners or potential home buyers that haven't signed an agreement of purchase and sale yet. And why does that matter? We hope to bring them into the Tarion fold or have interest in reading education. For those of you that know, the traditional point of receiving education was the homeowner information package directly from the builder, but we've received a lot of feedback from consumers directly saying, we wish we knew about some of these things before we even bought a home. And we are trying to work with realtors and real estate lawyers to get materials in the hands of home buyers earlier, but we think that this app will help. It helps them with the browsing stage. They're able to look up a particular builder or a particular geographical area to see what's being planned in their area. And it really is a way to get them in dialogue with us and having an earlier relationship, which once they purchase, we're able to switch that relationship over to the My Home portal, which of course benefits all of us, because if they're using the portal on the consumer side, you're able to get your forms, hopefully in a timely manner, through BuilderLink. Sorry. Education offerings. So you've heard me say education many times in the last few minutes. These are free seminars. As a regulator, as an agency working in for public interest, we are very happy to offer as many free seminars as our stakeholders want and need. It's in all of our best interest to be, and that goes back to clarity and consistency around what's going on in the industry, what we're seeing, how can we raise the bar. We do have a Tarion 101 for all of our stakeholders. Once again, not just builders and new staff, but realtors, home inspectors, building officials, lawyers. I've referenced our construction performance guidelines. We have tutorials, and these tutorials have been fantastic live sessions where we go into a model home. It's hosted by a builder because we have to use their model home. And it's really a live session that becomes interactive. There's usually a healthy level of debate as well. And a Tarion rep will take out their toolkit and show how we measure out certain tolerances and how we would determine warrantability on some of the most common items that we see. So we think that that is a fantastic tool or resource in the educational offering. Of course, if you feel like you need a refresher on the PDI process, the pre-delivery inspection, we also offer a seminar around how to improve your PDI experience, improving customer service. We all want that. It ends up with better resolutions for everyone involved. And of course, homeowner orientation. There are builders, before they move their customers in, that have homeowner orientation evenings or little trade shows, and we're always happy to participate in that if you'd like. So more educational resources. The PDI is always, once again, trying to get homeowners educated at the very beginning part of the process. So we've developed 10 different pre-delivery inspection videos, and we've encouraged realtors and builders to put it out in their blogs, their emails, on their websites. We all know that a well-educated homeowner means a better process for all of us, right? And CPG tutorials, I told you about the live session. We've also made little clips and an entire video. We don't believe that replaces The live sessions, those are definitely an experience because it is much more interactive and there's debate. And once again, we've had home inspectors and building officials in those sessions, which makes for even livelier discussion from all perspectives. But if you're trying to educate your clients on particular issues that they feel that they do have, these CPG articles, we have picked out the most common ones, and we've taken the larger video and made them into little snapshots of items. So we think that that hopefully is a great resource for you as well, towards your customers and to get it out. And on that note, I'm going to ask Bob to come up and take us through some warranted, not warranted.
For those who might attend our builder updates from time to time, is there any builders in the room that attended our seasonal up? We do it in the spring, we do it in the fall. I know I recognize a couple of faces. We always have this interactive session called Warranted or Not, where we pose a question about warrantability on a particular item and a little bit of audience participation. In this case, I'm going to ask just for a show of hands. And if you want a little bit of discussion after the fact, we're happy to do that as well. So the first one to consider is a well where a homeowner reported that it was too high. And in this case, it was about 34 inches above grade. So the question I have for you, is this warranted? By show of hands? Not warranted? Don't know? The reality is this, these have all gone through a conciliation process, these pictures I'm going to show you, so we had to make a decision on them. I would ask that you put your kind of Tarion warranty service rep hat on, and because we have to make the decision. And we're going to reference a lot of documentation before that decision is made as well, from what the homeowner supplied, from what the builders supply, if it's code relevant in the building code. So this one was not warranted. The only requirement is that the well tag must be visible above ground, and the vent pipe has to be at least 40 centimeters or 16 inches above grade. So this really goes beyond the scope of Tarion warranty. There is no defect in workmanship. There is no building code violation. And this would fall under the wells regulations under the Ontario Water Resource Act. So this one wasn't warranted, but obviously the homeowner had submitted it to us on one of the statutory forms because they felt that the builder should do something about it, and we should, if the builder didn't, then we should do something about it. So here's an interesting one. The homeowner reported the bricks and mortar were not installed as per the building code 9.20.4.1. The precast concrete sills look perfect from the front. The homeowner opened the wall in the sheathing in the garage to expose the backside of the sill and bricks. You can see, hopefully you can see, that the builder only put mortar on part of the sill, and you can visibly identify from the front, but not in the back. So I asked the question, warranted? Not warranted? So this one was warranted because the bricks must be and sills must be installed in a full bed of mortar, and this is a violation of the section of the building code. In this particular case, the homeowner, we reviewed it initially and didn't see a problem. The homeowner took it upon himself to open the wall to show that there was a problem. The only evidence initially was there a little bit of cracking in the mortar. In this case, the homeowner reported there was paint peeling. The builder painted the vent flaps at the homeowner's request because the homeowner wanted black finishings. Warranted? Not warranted? And I'm going to guess that you think it's not warranted because the homeowner asked the builder to do it as a courtesy. Well, you would be wrong. It was warranted. And the way we see it is once a builder undertakes to do something, it has to be done properly. It has to be done with materials that are appropriate for that application. In this case, the paint probably was not suited to paint vinyl exhaust fence. So we did warrant it, and I know a lot of builders will shy away from courtesy repairs because they don't want to have an extended warranty on it, but it's your customer, and if you're going to do something, just make sure it's done in the same way you would do any other part of the construction on a home. The homeowner did not add this to their 30-day list, but we're going to certainly add it to their year end. These stairs were not stable. The top of the stairs are not attached to anything and are not wide enough. Do I have to ask the question, warranted? Not warranted? Anyone think this is not warranted? It was certainly warranted. It is a defect in work material. The top of the stair railings are not attached because they're not wide enough and really nothing attached to. You can't exactly attach it to a sliding glass door, can you? So anyways, this one, and I guess for those builders who've not gone through the experience of a conciliation, you kind of ask yourself, why did the builder let this one run its course? It's clearly a defect in material workmanship. So why did we actually have to go out there and assess it? This one actually has a couple slides. You can see that there's a rather large patch. This is a drywall compound, and there was a number of patches throughout the home. But from the builder's perspective, he claimed that all these patches are a result of normal nail pops or shrinkage cracks, which are an exclusion under Section 13(2)D of the Act. However, do you think we warranted this? Not warranted?
Can I ask the question first? When was this done?
This was done at year end. So it's and so the question was asked when was it done? It was done at year end, and most builders do courtesy repairs as far as drywall year end. More often than not, they patch only and leave it up to the homeowner to sand and paint. In this particular case, there's actually about 20 photos we have of this, and there was large patches throughout the house. This was more than normal shrinkage. Normal shrinkage crack, you wouldn't, especially on the first picture, showed you wouldn't have a patch that big. So we did warrant it because it was excessive. And in the Act itself, under Section 13, normal shrinkage of materials caused by drying after construction is excluded. But we also define normal in the construction performance guideline, and this is something, normal is something that's usually something usual or to be expected. This was certainly beyond this. So again, the only thing I would add to this, if you're doing courtesy repairs at the year end on drywall, make sure that you let the homeowner know exactly the extent of what you're going to do. If you're going to patch only, not sand. If in any house, even if there's only one wall with an excessive number of patches on, or one stud where every nail pop, then that would be considered excessive. The complaint is that the hole in the base of the cabinet was overcut. Warranted? Not warranted? I wasn't going to say this today, but we historically don't warrant ugly. This is a situation where, had it been, if we did warrant it, by the way, had it been clean cut, we probably would not have warranted it. But this, you can't just go in there and and hack this out and not think that something. I mean, it's just not right. It's just not. Number one, it's just not professional. It's just not good workmanship. So that's why we did warrant that. The homeowner on this one stated that the Indiana limestone cladding always looked dirty and wet. So it's Indiana limestone. Warranted? Not warranted? Whole bunch of I don't knows. The reality on this one, it wasn't warranted. Limestone stone is, of course, a natural stone product, and it's normal. It may not look good. It does dry out, and there was no water penetration or no defects other than the fact that the appearance after a heavy rainfall was like this until it completely dried. This is the last slide in this section. The homeowner reported the trim was not taken into account for when the closet door was framed. The bulky trim used could not fit into space, so they cut it into the trim on the exterior door to allow for the space. Warranted? We got a good showing of warranted, not warranted. It was warranted. I mean, it is a defect in work material. There are times when you may have trim that has to be cut for some reason, but the workmanship needs to be done properly. Also, I look at this as somewhat of a reputational issue. If you're a builder, would you expect this in your home? So I'm going to ask one question, last question about this one. How many builders would do something about this? How many? Yeah, because sometimes the simplest question to ask, is it right? And do what's right.
So you've heard us reference our construction performance guidelines, or as we refer to them as CPG, several times this morning. And hopefully you know by now that we're undergoing what we think will be a robust review of the construction performance guidelines. To be clear, it is our freehold version. We do have a separate common element CPG, and we are not launching a review of that as yet until we go through the first round of this one. But that also means that it does apply to condos within the unit, of course. So we posted in July and basically tried to reach as many of our stakeholders as possible, saying if you have any suggestions for improving our construction performance guidelines, we want to make sure it's a current living document. And unfortunately, policy reviews are very time consuming. So the last time we put out this current edition, it was posted in 2013 after a 3-year internal review process. That does not make it a living current document. So what we're doing now is, after we get in all of the submissions during this period, we're going to break it out and say which are the high priority ones. Let's look at 10 to 15 right away. Let's go through it with our industry review committee. See which ones we think or believe should be updated right now, and whether we need to introduce new items to make sure that we are current with code and other things, industry practices right now. We will post them again in March to say these are the ones that we want to introduce into the current version, and then start the cycle all over again, hopefully with another 10 to 15 items. But the point is, we really want your feedback. We're already getting feedback, once again, not just from homeowners and builders. In fact, our own staff are giving feedback, obviously, from their own frontline experiences, and we're looking at the data and the claims forms that come in, and not just around warranted, but reported. Because if we have a huge volume of certain items or issues that are being reported and not necessarily warranted, does that mean that our current document is clear enough? And we really do want and intend for this document to be a clear document or guideline that everyone can use to give you a better idea, and homeowners, in terms of how we would look at it from a warrantability aspect. And of course, we want to make sure it's consistent with code, and we know that there are code changes that come in on a very regular cycle. So we want to be prepared and ahead of the curve on certain things. So Nicole is actually going to take you through some of the submissions that we've received so far, but I want you to understand that we're just taking you through these to give you some insight in terms of what we're hearing from stakeholders, and we really want to hear from you. That doesn't mean that we're seriously considering some of these. We've definitely received some interesting perspectives from a variety of stakeholders, but we're not able to sit there and make full considerations if we're not getting perspectives from all of our stakeholder groups. So, you know, if there's anything about what we're saying today that is even remotely interesting to you, we do encourage you to give us some feedback, even if it's on one item. We would love to hear from you. So on that note, I am going to ask Nicole to come up and take us through some of the submissions that we received.
So thank you, Saloni. And so today we do have a few submissions that we are going to go through. And the first item that was submitted was actually submitted by a home inspector regarding CPG Article 1.16. Concrete floor slabs are generally sloped, be clarified, and to also address the issue regarding ponding. This is what our current CPG Article 1.16 looks like. I'm not going to read it in its entirety because there is a lot of information there, but we'll make note of the section that says basement concrete floors are generally sloped towards a floor drain in order to facilitate water drainage in the event of an accidental flooding that might occur. Also, the second highlighted sentence that states localized ponding is acceptable. When this request was submitted to us, it was accompanied by a position from MMA with the code interpretation stating that the ponding or standing water would not be permitted. So if the CPG was amended on the basis of this submission, we could be looking at an article that states something like basement floors shall meet the requirements of the OBC. Therefore, there is no accommodation for standing water, even if there was minor ponding. In terms of the possible impact to builders, if this change is made to reflect the wording in the OBC, builders may have difficulty complying with this. And therefore, that currently in the field, that this is not being followed or is not being enforced. I would also like to remind you that even though we do receive a submission, it doesn't automatically mean that it's going to be accepted into the CPG. And the submissions do need to be reviewed by Tarion, as well as the CPG Industry Expert Review Committee. But that being said, if this is something that you do feel passionate about, that you want to submit articles to us, then certainly you have that opportunity, like Saloni said, to submit them to us. And we have that opportunity until January the 10th of 2018. And we want a wide range of perspectives, so we ask everyone to submit your submissions to us. Next up is a homeowner submission requesting that the CPG be updated to reflect lintels that are painted using rust-proof paint. This would fit into Article 4.28 of the CPG, which speaks to exterior paint and stain finishes. So if that submission were accepted by the committee, we would be looking at a possible change in wording that would add a section stating that the builder is responsible to ensure that lintels are painted with rust-proof paint to keep them free from corrosion. In terms of the possible impact to builders, builders would need to ensure that they're using the correct paint to paint the lintels, and so that it is covered under the warranty for 1 year. Additionally, the Industry Expert Review Committee would be considering factors like whether this would be beyond the requirements of the OBC to indicate that the lintels are to be free from corrosion, or whether this actually complements the intent of the OBC. Next up is an article relating to a homeowner responsibility to maintain proper humidity levels in the home. We talked a lot about humidity control a few years ago, about the responsibility of homeowners and builders for maintaining the proper humidity levels in the home. This concern was submitted by a homeowner in regards to a possible revision to the CPG Article 12.21, requesting the article include that builders be responsible for actually maintaining the humidity level in the home until the date of possession. Currently, the CPG Article 12.21 doesn't speak to builders maintaining the humidity levels in the home prior to occupancy. The highlighted section of this article, which actually speaks about cupping, refers only to the homeowners maintaining the humidity levels in the home after they've taken possession. So if that submission were to be accepted by the committee, we would be looking at a possible change in the wording that would add a section stating the builder is responsible to maintain indoor humidity levels from the time the flooring is brought into the home until the homeowner takes possession of the home. In terms of possible impact to the industry expert review committee would be considering factors like whether this would be difficult for the builder to control, and in addition, if processes would need to be created to comply with this. For example, if the homeowner doesn't purchase an air conditioning from their builder or dehumidifiers or humidifiers, how would this even be possible for a builder to control the humidity level in the home from construction until the homeowner takes possession? This next concern is regarding Article 11.8, and this was submitted by a homeowner that suggested the CPG article be amended to state that if a fissure opens into a crack, the builder shall repair it under warranty. This relates to our current CPG Article 11.8, which speaks to fissures not being considered cracks and are considered to be a natural characteristic of a stone material. And there is no mention in the CPG of fissures actually becoming a crack. If the suggestion would be considered and approved by the committee, the possible change in wording could be an addition stating fissures that open up into cracks within the first year of warranty shall be repaired. In terms of a possible impact to builders, builders would need to ensure that their suppliers are aware of this, and certainly that they can provide products and services to meet the minor changes to the guideline, or that they actually have a repair solution in place for when these occurrences might happen. And we've actually had a situation, we actually do have this complaint quite often, where homeowners do report it, and a lot of times it's just actually a fissure and not actually a crack. And we've hired experts. We have qualified contractors or experts that we would hire that would actually come into the home, and they would actually look at it, and they would be able to determine and assist us whether this would be something that is actually a fissure, if it's a crack, or if it was, and that should be covered under warranty, or if this is something that was actually caused by damage or of impact that, say, the homeowner dropped, a spoon on the counter or something like that. The next submission came to us from a builder who actually suggested that an addition to CPG Article 12.23 relating to hardwood floor finishes. They asked if an addition could be made to state that pre-finished flooring will not be an exact match to stain finish stairs. And currently CPG Article 12.23 speaks to variations in color and grain pattern from one piece of flooring to another, but doesn't actually address where there's a situation where there's a variation in stain from pre-finished flooring to site finished stairs. And again, we've had this situation come up quite often where homeowners will report it on a statutory form to us, where their, say, pre-finished flooring on a landing doesn't match the site finished stain. And we've had a situation recently that I am aware of where we went to a house and we looked at the stairs from a normal viewing position from different levels. So we looked at it from the main floor, the landing, and then the upper level of the home. And we looked down and it was very consistent, the stain finish, in comparison to the pre-finished flooring. And in that situation, we didn't warrant that, but it would have been beneficial to have actually had a construction performance guideline article that a builder could have used that as a tool to show the homeowner that, you know, this is acceptable. And also it could have prevented us from having to go out to a conciliation inspection to have to assess this item. The possible change in wording of this was to, if this was to be accepted in the revision to the remarks in Article 1223, specifying that variations in color and grain from different flooring surface, for example, pre-finished, strip, and site finished stairs, are normal and not considered to be a defect. This could also result in a new CPG article that would speak to how pre-finished flooring will not typically match the site finished stairs. And again, in terms of a possible impact, this would be able to provide clarification to homeowners and set a more realistic expectation in regards to pre-finished flooring versus a site finished stair finish. The last sample submission was from a builder requesting a revision to add more information about sump pumps into the CPG, specifically why they are used and also about maintenance, which would be a homeowner responsibility. And currently CPG Article 6.14 is the only article that even mentions sump pumps, and it only references the condition in how it's related to the connection of the septic system. Sump pumps related concerns would need to be actually adding a new article to the CPG. The possible change would be to create a new CPG article speaking to sump pumps. And in terms of the possible impact to builders, this would be able to provide clarification to homeowners on their responsibility and also what the warranty coverage is in relation to sump pumps. Alternatively, if there is a sump pump provided in the home during construction, then information may be more suited to be provided to the, from the builder to the homeowner when they're going through the pre-delivery inspection at the home, rather than adding a CPG article. And this would be similar to the homeowner or to the builder educating homeowners during the PDI or during construction about other appliances in their homes, such as the HRV system, a furnace, humidifiers, etc. And we've had situations where we've had this in the past as well, where we've gone into a home and the homeowner wasn't maintaining the humidity levels. We've gone into a house recently where there was mold in the home actually, and we did discover that part of the issue was related to the sump pump, where the homeowner, the level was so high set in the sump pump that the water wasn't draining. Again, I just wanted to stress, as Saloni did, that this objective with this preview is to generate discussion and to let you see the types of submissions that we've received so far. And also that hopefully that inspires you to make some submissions of your own, if you have any. And as I stated, the goal is that this is an ongoing, robust review of the CPG that is current, and we want this to be a living document that is updated according to code changes as well as industry best practices. And we can't do that without all of you in helping us and giving your feedback. So please make sure that you do submit any feedback that you have to us by January the 10th. And submissions can be made through our website, and it is really easy that there is a submission form that streams across the banner of our website. Does anyone have any questions or any topics you want to discuss? Yes. Sorry, yes. So the question was, are you able to see the other submissions that are on the website current or that we've had received so far?
No, not yet. What will happen, and that's part of the review process, we want to make sure that it's easy for people to read and focus their time. So we're not going to put all of the submissions up. We're going to take the top 10 to 15. We're going to go through the industry review committee to make sure that it is actually relevant, high priority, something that works for all sides. Then we'll post those 10 to 15 and say, we want your comments on these. Do you think that this is how we should update it? Should we be introducing a new item on such and such issue? So we're going to be doing it that way, right? So, I mean, because the reality is, I mean, already we've received, I believe, over 85 submissions. We know that some of them, not to say that that feedback is sometimes, not feasible. I'm trying to be diplomatic, but, we don't want to waste your time as well. So stay tuned. By March, we should have things that we're reposting, targeted on the ones that we do want to update right away.
Before I go on to this next section, there's one of those articles in CPG by I co-chaired the committee that did the round that started in January 1st, 2013, and then, as Saloni said, it took a number of years, and there was a lot of banter in that committee of how the wording should be, and it is always our intention to make that wording extremely clear so that you could pass this information on to your customers, and there's no misunderstanding of how it would be interpreted. In the original edition, there was some construction jargon and some jargon, industry jargon, that might not have, or formulas that wouldn't necessarily be easy for a homeowner to understand. The only other comment I was
actually going to jump in and say, as a follow-up, and you just triggered that, I don't want you to feel, if you really have an interest in this, that there's a black hole of secrecy around how things are being reviewed. If you have real interest in this aspect of it, please let us know. There may not be room on the industry review committee, but we are going to have representation from most of our stakeholders. There are going to be home inspectors, building officials, once again, obviously builders, building science or engineer on their expert. But we want to be able to conduct targeted roundtable discussions too. So if we believe there's an item where there's a lot of healthy debate and we want to get the full picture, we not only will be reaching out to manufacturing associations and trades associations, but we want to hear from you as individuals. If you're interested in this process, we'll invite you to roundtable discussions or something that we're having along the way to make sure that we're getting the full picture. Right.
Thank you. And it does take time to go through these articles, and as Saloni said, we do invite comments from the industry experts, or whether it be through a code experts, or whether it be manufacturing, and we will list in the CPG currently listed those organizations which we discussed before we actually put pen to paper on those articles in the current edition of the CPG. Just one other thing as I think about it, on the submission or possible article on the stain versus hardwood versus finish in place stairs, a lot of the decisions that we have to make around now in the field, and we get a lot of them, and it's based on the wording in the color selection sheet that a homeowner submits. It said, may say floor to match or stairs to match to the floor, or the flare will match as closely as possible. That word, what's closely as possible? I mean, and it becomes a little bit of a subjective call from our side. So I would visit that if you are doing it currently, and use wording. You could just outright say it's not going to match, but words like complementary to the floor. So give yourself a little bit of wiggle room with regards to how that submission. I'm not sure that there will be an article on that particular topic, but it would certainly be helpful if there was. So the second round of warranted or not, in this case, the homeowner reported the honeycombing is right through the full binding of the concrete, resulting in aggregate coming off in your hand. The concrete gap is very wide, leaving too much exposure. The last concrete step went below the finished grade that was marked by the surveying company. The stone on the side completely broke free of the mortar. Warranted? That's a good show of hands. Warranted? yes, this was warranted. There are 3 code violations, in fact. In this case, there was some problem with the run and rise of the stairs as well. Even though that itself wasn't exactly what was reported, because it's a health and safety issue, when we assess this claim, we add that to the assessment report because it is a violation of the Ontario Building Code and is a health and safety issue. Next one is, this is, you can see the wire underneath the counter. The installer cut a hole the hole too big for the tile to accommodate the electrical conduit, and ended up using grout to fill the excessive space. The result is messy looking, with patches in a couple locations. The builder's position was that the areas in question could not be seen from a normal viewing position, because a person would need to bend down and look underneath the cabinet in order to see them. So what do you think? Warranted? Not warranted? There's a few. So we have probably half and half. It is poor workmanship, and it was warranted. Obviously, little care was taken in cutting the tile and accommodating the conduit, and left a lot of ragged edges. But normal viewing distance is what I just want to focus on for a second. When you're sitting down at a kitchen table or at a counter, you can see this. So normal viewing distance is what is, again, walking up the stairs, what's a normal viewing distance? Sitting in a chair, what's the normal viewing distance? And we're going to look at normal in that sense. You may not see it standing up, and maybe you have to bend down in order to see it when you're standing facing the counters. But from a normal viewing distance at a table, you could see it. And it's just poor workmanship. And you should take more pride in dealing with that in the first place. In this case, the homeowner reported no railing. Railings are installed when the porch heights, of course, exceed 23 3/4 inches under the building code. In this case, it was below the 24-inch threshold. And the agreement of purchase sale simply stated that a railing would be provided if required by code. So there is no code violation here. Warranted? Not warranted? Majority of say it's not warranted, and you're right. It doesn't look good, but there is no code violation. There is no defect in working material, and this becomes more of a personal preference issue or a design issue, which is excluded from the statutory warranties. Obviously, from a reputational perspective, it's just the focal point in a house. A builder may might have considered doing something slightly different and having those 2 freestanding pickets, if you will. When you first look at this photo, you might lead you to believe the complaint has to do with insulation, since you can clearly see the thermal bridging at each stud. The photo was taken early in the morning when the dew was still visible, so keep that in mind. However, the claim actually related to the siding installation itself. The siding is an engineered wood with very specific installation guidelines on nailing. The manufacturer guidelines require end joints are fastened to studs or a nailing plane of a specific thickness behind the siding. No nailing plane was installed. You can see in the photo that the end joints are not nailed to the studs. This resulted in joints continually opening and closing during climate changes. The builder caulked the joints with correct caulking. However, the extent of the expansion and contraction of the joints due to the inadequate nailing caused the caulking to be squeezed out of the joint when it closed, causing a bubble and separate to the point that the caulking pulled apart, so it was no longer attached to the end of each board, creating a wide gap. The insulated sheathing behind the siding would become clearly visible during this condition. Warranted? Warranted would be right. And this is, we do have a CPG article that speaks to it a little bit. CPG article 4.2, wood or hardwood or panel type siding joints not tight. So again, it's a matter of the builder not satisfying the manufacturer's requirements. The homeowner reported there was a chunk of concrete missing from the foundation wall at the corner. Warranted? Not warranted? Warranted? Yes, it is warranted. It's a defect in working material. And likely the damage probably occurred when they stripped the forms, or might not have been something in the form at that point that caused that little bit of a gap. It looks fairly clean cut, but it isn't right, and we warranted it. This one, and it's the last one, this concern was the appearance of the finishing in the exterior. Warranted? Not warranted? I'm just going to add a little something. By the interior baseboard was used around the exterior column. So that was it was a wrong product to use, and was warranted. It was a defect in material workmanship. Again, we run through these warranted or not sessions in spring and fall. We always add new pictures. Every one of these actually went to an inspection. There was a report written, and the ones that were warranted for very clearly, you may ask, why would a builder actually let it run its course to conciliation? But they did. And we have to report on it. So I just want to make a note. We get about 5,600 requests for conciliation every year, in that range, but we actually only carry out about 1,300 of them. So that speaks to the good work that builders in the room would do to make sure that even if an item might have been missed during the normal builder repair periods, that they're paying attention at the end and getting things resolved. So good for you. Any questions? So the question is, a builder or someone who's building a house for himself. It was a builder, whether a registered builder or not, building a house for himself, and then chose before occupying to move in. And if he did not enroll that home, and if he wasn't a registered builder, that's illegal on 2 counts. If he's not a registered builder, it's illegal. He didn't enroll a home, that's illegal. He's vending a home without being registered, that's illegal. So yes, that would, our enforcement team would be knocking on his door.
That was my answer too, right?
Yeah, you know, it does happen. I have to say, sometimes someone decides to build for a house for themselves, and they get an offer, you know, maybe through the process, or the situation in the family changes, and they decide that they're going to sell it. They need to contact our office. You know, these things happen, and as long as it's done appropriately, there has very little impact. There still would be, there would be warranty coverage, and there's some securities and whatnot we would entertain, but it's better to do it upfront than get caught. Because what happens, that home is still covered under warranty, and usually what the situation kind of escalates because the homeowner, that particular builder, is not looking after what we would deem normal warranty obligations. Any other questions? So on that note, I want to thank you for attending, of course, taking the time out of your busy schedules.